I thought like going into that game, like I knew that Michigan was good, and I said that I think a lot of Bama fans in the first half were going to be very frustrated, like not thinking. I think that a lot of Bama fans thought they were going to just walk all over them. I knew Michigan was good. I came away, I did not realize how impressive from a roster standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, from like a scheme standpoint, they were. It was incredible to watch. So congrats to you, David.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I wish I was still on the team and had more to do with it. But Jake and I did watch the game together, and we're sitting there and we're thinking, like, both teams made their fair share of mistakes. I haven't seen Michigan make a special teams blunder all season long. It got so bad in this game, we were wondering, could they make a PAT to even force it to overtime? But before that, it looked like Nick Saban went into halftime, did his typical thing, made his adjustments, was going to outcoach Jim Harbaugh in the second half because Michigan was shut out in the second half before that last 4-minute drive. And when Michigan needed it the most, they went down and scored. They forced overtime, and then Blake Corum, your senior running back, who comes back for this, took over. I mean, what are your thoughts on just not just the game, but just how Michigan has gone through this season? And, their schedule was called weak. They had these cheating allegations. They beat Ohio 3 times in a row. Now to finally get over that hump, beat an SEC team in the college football playoff. What do you make of that, and what do you think about their chances going into the Washington game?
Well, so I think the thing with Michigan is cheating allegations was low hanging fruit for a lot of people, including myself. And the schedule was weak for the first 2 months, as it has set up the past couple of years. And so I think a lot of that has become a cliche, slander against Michigan for whatever reason. And on top of it, once they have actually made it to the playoff, they've lost in the first round both years. This team, what was most impressive to me was what you just said. In the second half of that game, right? They had, I think at one point, 12 plays for 24 total yards. They had 6 carries for -2 yards, and that was going into the last drive. You're down 7 in the Rose Bowl, and like season's on the line, gotta have it. And they went right down the field and scored. That's what elite teams do. Like they overcome the adversity, they overcome their own mistakes. Like I said, they out schemed, they out coached. I thought they outplayed Bama for most of that game. So what I was mainly impressed with, and I think that like I was kind of blown away with the creativity with the play calling on offense. That was not like some 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense. And they got dudes everywhere. And it was just, like I said, top to bottom, it was really impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, typically, I'm used to, when you see whether it's been a Michigan in the past or a team that's really outside of the SEC playing a top dog from the SEC, they may have 2/3 of the puzzle, but they don't have all 3 pieces of the puzzle, whether it's in the back end, whether it's up front, whether it's at the skill position. I mean, special teams was bad, but I think we can say that was kind of an anomaly.
I do think it was an anomaly.
Over time. I mean, Michigan's a complete football team, and that's what we were talking about leading off the show, Chris. And me and you are close to around the same age, and I'm looking at the Southeastern Conference now and college football in general. We talked about Ole Miss having a chance to be a complete team going into next year. Missouri looking like they can have a chance to be a complete team. We know Georgia's going to be good. We know Alabama's going to be good. When you look around the rest of the country, are there a couple teams that kind of jump out to you maybe that can take that next step in 2024? And it doesn't just have to be SEC. I mean, looking around at the ACC, at the Big Ten, can Penn State finally take that next step, right, with that 12-team playoff? Is there any teams that kind of jump out to you going into next year outside of the normal, names of the top dogs that we see?
I'm going to hold off on Penn State for quite some time. That has just burned me too many times. But I'd say the one that jumps up the most is still in that same conference that you mentioned, the SEC, and that's Tennessee. I've said this for a couple of years now. When NIL got into play in college sports, some of these dormant blue bloods and powerhouses were going to make they were going to storm back into relevance. And like Tennessee, Miami, USC, I thought would all be on that list. Tennessee, with what Heupel can do on offense, the talent they're bringing in, not only at quarterback, but especially at the skill positions. And they've played like really, really, it's gone, I feel like, flown under the radar, but they played really good defense over the past couple of years as well, for the most part. So I think Tennessee is one that really, really jumps out. Going around the country, I tell you what, the Big Ten, I don't think it's like a shock to say Oregon. I think Oregon is about to be a mainstay in the top 5 for quite some time. I think going into the Big Ten and being able to build that brand even bigger than what it already is, and being able to recruit kids like even more so than you already did, like because they're not going to have to play in the Pac-12, they can play in the Big Ten. I think they're going to be a mainstay, like maybe not like the Florida State '90s run where you're in the top 5 for 13 straight years, but I think they are going to contend for championships every year.
Well, and two, I think when we look at teams that are ready to take that next step, I mean, Oregon has to be one of them, right? I mean, a team that really hasn't done anything when you look at the college football playoff. Going to the 12 team, they're one of the teams that it benefits the most. I think Penn State's right there too, though, Chris, because there's so many moving parts. Divisions getting out of conferences. I don't know if it helps a team more than it does Penn State getting out of that Big Ten East. Yeah, you're probably going to have to play one of them. Yeah, you're adding USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington. But being able to get out of that division, man, it's just like getting jumped with a bunch of guys with aluminum baseball bats snapping their fingers in the middle of the street.
Yeah, it's not great. Chris, I want to give you your thoughts on Tommy Rees and how he called this football game, especially in the first half. And after you give me those, I want you to give me your thoughts on the final play and how do you think it should have went?
So the first half, it was one of the most, it was uncomfortable at best to watch because it didn't feel like they had a game plan. It felt like they showed up to, like, I compared it to showing up for like a fight and you're going up like you think you're going to box. And all of a sudden, this guy with like cauliflower ears, like are breaking out like leg kicks and stuff. Like that's what it felt like. Like, it didn't feel like Bama was really prepared. They had 4 sacks on Milroe's first 6 dropbacks. Like that's insane to me. So it wasn't like they had much of anything going. I think they had 38 total yards and they had a 34-yard touchdown. So not great in the first half. I thought it was better in the second half. People hate on that play call on 4th and 3. I thought Jalen Milroe deserved to have the ball in his hands. I think he's earned that this year. He's the best athlete on the field. Could it have like worked out better? I've seen so much speculation on what the play call was supposed to be. I don't know if any of us really know like exactly what they were trying to do. But yeah, I think like that offensive line, like Milroe's gotten so much heat for this game, and he didn't have his best game. That offensive line giving up 6 sacks and then getting blown up in the backfield on that play. When if you look at the replay, he might have been able to walk in. If he cuts it left, that's where I think the blame like should fall more so than on Milroe. With Rees, man, it can't take 30 minutes each week to get it going. It just can't. They can't. I love the second half adjustments. It's been great, but like they finally caught up with you when you play a team like Michigan because they were going to go toe to toe with you for 60 minutes.
I just don't understand this. I mean, you're in the Rose Bowl. How can we not snap the ball?
Yeah, that's
how can we not get did we not take a snap over Christmas break?
It's the easiest thing. It's not, hey man, we ran into each other on this combination outside, or we keep false starting because the cadence is a little bit messed up. We're talking about dinner's ready. Just now you got to go get the fork out of the silverware drawer, and your ass cannot find the silverware drawer.
It's the first thing you have to do.
Yeah, that's it.
It's the most simple thing you have to do.
And I thought on their best drive, I know they scored on that one early. On their best drive that they did it back to back.
Well, you tried to lose the Iron Bowl doing it.
Yeah.
You really tried to lose the Iron Bowl and go back to Texas. Go back to Texas too.
The first touchdown of the year against MTSU was a snap over Milroe's head, and he ran around everybody for like a 39-yard touchdown.
That's right. That's why I put the Denard Robinson clip. When Denard fumbled his first snap and ran the touchdown, they were like,
how can we not? How can Bama not? We're not snapping the ball now? Out of all the things with Nick Saban,
it's just things we're not used to seeing, like penalties, bad snaps. Like I can't tell you the last time I saw Nick Saban in a huge game be up 7 on the last drive and lose the game.
I blame Matt.
I think that's the toughest pill to swallow out of that is because I think that he set the standard so high for what he's going to be held to. And Michigan's a really, really good football team. That's why it's been comical to watch like some of these ridiculous responses from like Florida State fans, Georgia fans, like somehow like dogging Bama. Like he just lost to Bama a month ago, by the way. So them losing to Michigan, like. I don't know the last time I've seen people discount losing to the number 1 team that was like you were an underdog to, that's lost 3 games in 3 years, and you lost them in overtime. Like, but still, the defense is what even this year you could have counted on the most. And dude, that stat, man, when you have 12 plays for 24 yards total in the third quarter and fourth quarter, and then the last 10 plays of the game go for 100 yards, 10 yards per play. You have to give credit to Michigan, but that is a different Bama team than I'm used to seeing.
It's just a crazy sport. It's a crazy sport, and it's been a crazy year.
All right, Chris, Eddie wants to know, Alabama's offense used to look just like Michigan's offense. Do you think this loss will refocus Saban on kind of making the offense what it used to be?
I think that the offensive stuff is a little bit overblown this year. I think one thing they did a really good job of this year was finally playing to the strengths of the talent they had around them. And that's something you didn't see the last 2 years. Like Bill O'Brien was like, he was going to run his offense. Like the A&M game where Miller had to start, it was very clear he did not cater anything to Milroe's play calling. I think that in moving forward, that's probably what they're going to continue to do. And also, like one thing that I think has also been overlooked is Tommy Rees catching all the heat. I think the offense, even though the numbers weren't nearly as great as they've been in the past, it's a first year guy in the SEC with a first year quarterback and a lot of young guys up front. I think they're going to be fine moving forward, going into year 2. But I don't know how hard nosed like early 2010s like run game it's going to be.
For Tommy Rees, people got to remember he's 14 years old. I think people forget that. But before I get to answer this question, I just had to say this. There was a point during the game where they showed J.J. McCarthy, and I firmly believe he's the same guy who played Rudy and the star from the Goonies. Like, go back and look at J.J. McCarthy. He's the kid from the Goonies. It's 100% him. But Bama tailored the offense around Jalen Milroe like week 8.
Yeah.
Like against LSU.
Yeah.
Remember, before the year, all we heard about, we talked about this, murder ball. Nick Saban's going back to the A.J. McCarron days, back to the Greg McElroy days, where Alabama's going to line up. They're bigger than every NFL offensive line's ever been of all time. They got 9 guys that weigh 735 pounds. Yeah, they're going to go back to, and we kept saying, I don't know how this fits Jalen Milroe. Mm-hmm. This is when people thought that maybe Ty Simpson could win the job, or that lacrosse player that came over from Notre Dame that somehow beat USF. But my whole thing where I would worry as an Alabama fan is that you didn't change the offense to put yourself in the best position until you played LSU, because your ass realized you may have to score 50 points to beat these cats at LSU with how good they were on offense, regardless of how good you were on defense, in this whole transition period where you're supposed to be going back to bully ball. So what do you do now? So now you got Jalen Milroe coming back. You were supposed to be building this thing to going back to murder ball. You know that's not going to work as well as the other way that you did it with Jalen Milroe, which was tailored more to his strength, the RPO, move in the pocket. So going into next year, with Jalen Milroe coming back, are you going to be a spread offense that is able to move the pocket, that does RPO, that does zone read, that does the quarterback design runs? Or are you going to be a 12 personnel offense, which that's what Alabama was the whole first half of the Michigan game?
Yeah, and if you're going to... Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was going to say, if you're going to play bully ball like the question was, this would be the quarterback to do it with when you can run so much Q power, Q draw, quarterback designed run. Remember, the last 4 guys to line up under center for Alabama are not just playing on Sunday, they're all starting on Sunday, right? Like some of the best drop back passers that we've seen. So I don't know what the plan is moving forward here. I mean, Jalen Milroe ended up playing himself into number 6 on the Heisman race, something like that. But you're also bringing in the number 1 drop back passer, and you've recruited well at the position. You've stacked depth. I mean, what do you think is going to happen moving forward, Chris?
I think that the heat and like the scrutiny that Jalen Milroe is getting right now is so ridiculous and unfounded in my opinion.
I agree.
He had a bad game against Michigan. Here's the thing, like because the majority of it is coming from SEC fans, right? And you brought up like they did struggle for like the first month, and they seemed like they couldn't get on the same page and what they wanted to do as an identity. And then against LSU, they finally started doing that. Who's to say it wasn't like a page out of like what Kirby's done the past couple of years when they had Monken and which is, hey, we don't have to show anything yet because we can still win these games, because they did. They kept winning each week. And so I think the one thing that should be scary for everyone, you talk about how inefficient at times the offense was and how inconsistent, he was, the offensive line was. That was his first year as a starter. And in the SEC, we talk about all the time, beat our chest about it's the best conference of football. They went 9-0 in that conference. They didn't lose a game in that conference. They didn't lose to Ole Miss. They didn't lose to Tennessee. They didn't lose to Georgia. They didn't lose to LSU. So I think going into next year, you can look at that Michigan game, and I think a lot of people are going to hang their hat on that because it's the last game of the year and it's person of the moment. There was a lot of improvement each week. It seemed like at that position at quarterback. I think Milroe's going to come back and be really, really good next year.
Oh, I think Jalen Milroe is going to be an excellent college quarterback. I want to make sure before we let you go, Chris, that I clarify. To me, bully ball and murder ball is a little bit different, I think, David, than maybe what you're thinking. To me, that is 12 personnel, 11 personnel, drop back passing game, more of a pro-style offense. I don't necessarily think of bully ball as Q power and stuff like that. Yeah. I think of that as more of spread. I mean, I've watched Cam Newton run Q power and Q counter in a spread offense, and you watch a bunch of these guys that can run that are more effective in spread. I think it can be both. But in my opinion, just for the audience out there, when I'm describing murder ball, I'm thinking Greg McElroy lines his ass up under center.
I know what you're thinking. But the fact you're saying it can be both, that's where I thought that we would see the sort of iteration move.
Oh, I agree. 100%.
What I'm saying is when you watch Tua play and Mac Jones play and Bryce Young play, and then you watch Jalen Milroe play, one of these guys is different. One of these guys has a different skill set. Only one of them can take off for 85 yards with his leg any given play.
Jalen Milroe,
you could incorporate that into having running backs like Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram still, and then he's a part of that package, which they didn't get to till later in the season. And I know what you're talking about, not showing too much throughout the year. That's all well and good if you remain unbeaten. But they lost to Texas. His turnovers is what led to him losing to Texas. And then he was benched for that. After that is where I saw the most growth from him, which was the most impressive. And look, we can talk about the Michigan game. Like you said, Michigan's up front was really, really good. I mean, Jalen Milroe is going to...
There was two elite teams that came down to 3 plays.
And that's one of the things, too, I think, like, not to beat it at horse. I know I've been overly complimentary about Michigan, but if you look at their defensive statistics, I remember making a graphic about this for SDS, like, early December. I was like, I'm going to do a quick deep dive and see what this team's all about. They're ranked in the top 5 nationally in like 20 to 25, like different statistics. It's
NFL
a really
players.
Good defense. I will also say, I don't care what they call it next year. I'd prefer, honestly, going into the offseason, maybe as you know, Bama fans, we stay away from the word murder this offseason. That'd be great. Then also, you know, you can call it whatever you want, but maybe just don't give up 49 sacks with that offensive line ranking 100.
That's the craziest. Hey, YouTube, thanks for stopping by. If you haven't, subscribe. It's 2024, man. Like, it's January 3rd already. I got a refrigerator coming today at some point. So make sure you subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Go grab some merch, too, from thedailywire.com/shop. We got cool mugs, candles, hoodies, anything your heart's desire, and more toys than the North Pole.